This is Tim with Online Big Blue, bringing you the best in New York Giants sports talk and entertainment. What should we talk about this evening? With free agency wrapping up, we seem to be running out of some topics, so hopefully something will break news-wise with the Giants so we can come put together something really interesting. But I saw a comment today on one of our videos, and you know what? It got me thinking. The comment was, do you think that the New York media has any influence on if coaches want to come to New York or do not want to come to New York and coach the Giants? And I was thinking about it, and I thought of a couple examples. Now, if we go back to Tom Coughlin. So Tom Coughlin, of course, is unceremoniously let go, some people will say. I think personally he had run his course in New York, but he was released, and we went through the coaching search, and the coaching carousel landed on Ben McAdoo, and that's kind of a weird place to land on, and I always thought that was a weird place to land on. And, because you would think that with the New York market, the Giants itself, the history, that coaches would have been beaten down the door to replace Tom Coughlin, and we landed on McAdoo. And I laughed because I told this story once before, but I had a friend that worked for the Eagles during the McAdoo hire. And a couple years after the McAdoo hire, and the McAdoo and everything fell apart, I had a conversation with him, and I said, I find it interesting that, we went with McAdoo, you guys went with Peterson. It's kind of history from there. And, and I was making a joke that, I was like, well, you're lucky that you guys wanted to sign McAdoo, and we signed him before you did. So, if anything, you owe us that Super Bowl. And he laughed, and he said to me, he goes, I could say it now because I'm not with the team anymore. But we never wanted to sign McAdoo. It was a New York created story. We were always going for Peterson. And they even said we were more thankful that that story came out, and it was on FAN, WFAN, a couple other places that, that we were going to sign McAdoo when we were going after Peterson the whole time. So we were happy because we were, that he was saying that the Eagles are like, well, that's great because now we don't have any competition for Peterson. And I know that McAdoo got the job because he was the offensive coordinator for 2 years, and he got the recommendation from Andy Reid. But you know what? He just didn't seem like a Giant hire, even going back to the press conference. And his relationship with the media was truculent at best. And I think that in some ways, like I said, he became the scapegoat for Eli Manning, that whole fiasco with Geno Smith and against the Raiders. But, the media was not easy on McAdoo, and rightfully so after the 11-5 season because the wheels just kind of fell off the bus. But I was, and then we go into, our next coaching phase, and that's Pat Shermer. Pat Shermer was a failed head coach in Cleveland. After McAdoo, the cupboard was kind of getting kind of bare. In reference to talent level for the Giants. But I laugh, but again, it's still the New York Giants job. But it's like, okay, you saw if you're a head coach and you're sitting somewhere and you saw what the media did to McAdoo, are you really all fired up to coach a bad team in that same situation? So what happens is the pendulum swings back over to Pat Shermer. Like I said, Shermer failed coach in Cleveland. Again, he had one, and I never understood how he got the Cleveland job because he had 2 seasons as the offensive coordinator with the Rams. His second season was better than his first, but somehow he was tagged as the next great coach. I never could figure that out. So he has a couple good seasons after the whole fiasco in Cleveland with the Vikings, and then he gets his second shot with the Giants. Now, Shermer's relationship with the media in New York was even worse than McAdoo. I mean, I've always said that Shermer is a dick, and I always felt that way. Because when he won, his shit didn't stink. That's plain and simple what it was. And he would let you know it. And when he lost, it was everyone else's fault but him. And the media tore into him for 2 years. And again, if you're sitting there as a head coach somewhere thinking to yourself, do you really want to be put in that situation with the New York media that you're going to have to handle this day in and day out? I mean, Shermer to the point just gave up on Mike Francesa on The Fan. And I remember the interview that ended the relationship with Shermer and Francesa. And honestly, I didn't think the interview was that bad. I think he was just asking honest individual questions that Shermer didn't want to answer. So, I mean, does the lights of the New York media that runs 24/7 prohibit coaches from wanting to coach here? Now, after the whole Shermer fiasco, where do we had the coaching carousel again. Where do we land? We land on Joe Judge. Joe Judge, I'm not saying he's not going to be a good coach. I don't know. You don't know. He could be the next Belichick Lombardi combined. But again, you're thinking, okay, it's the New York job. It's the New York market. Big name. Rivera goes to Washington, even with the Gettleman connection, without even interviewing. Doesn't even give the Giants an opportunity. McCarthy interviews, and basically Dallas doesn't let him leave. And then you break it down into Matt Rule. And like I said, we called the Matt Rule hire 24 hours before it happened because, we had a contact in Carolina that says, he's going to be the next coach. And it's funny, though, because it's, he called the Giants, and people are like, well, he called the Giants. He called the Giants and asked them to match the offer, and he would become the coach without interviewing. So, and he had just signed the contract with Baylor last season for like 10 years, and he had a buyout that he had to use to get out of that contract. And so Rule wasn't in it for the New York. Rule was in it for the money. But did the New York media, kind of cast a doubt on our coaching search because, who really wants to put up with what you got to put up with on a bad team or a rebuild 24/7 in the New York spotlight? And, living in New York, working in New York, like I have in the past, and like I said, being a big New York fan, I read the papers, I have subscriptions to the Daily News and the Post. I listen to FAN, MSG, Yes Network, SNY. It's everywhere. It literally is everywhere in the media. So is it deterring people from wanting to be here? I think in some ways it might. New York is always going to be a baseball and a football town. And I laugh because someone was telling me about New England. They're like, well, New England is just as bad as New York. I'm like, no, it's not. I was like, yeah, the Boston Red Sox have it just as bad as New York. The Patriots do not have it anywhere close to the media scrutiny that the Giants and the Jets have. Now, a lot of that is Belichick's built up a ton of goodwill by winning multiple Super Bowls. But you just think about it for a minute. You really want that name coach to come to your team. Every team wants that. But like I said, the last three hires, McAdoo, Shermer, and Judge. And like I said, we were turned down by a lot of people. Now, are they turning the job down because of the of the situation with the team? And like I said, and honestly, I would not want to be in that situation on a losing team, having to face the media scrutiny daily. I don't think any coach wants that. But like I said, I always say it. We're the Giants. We multiple Super Bowl winner. New York City, you win in New York and you're a god. Eli Manning, Eli Manning won 2 Super Bowls and people still picked on his butt. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's the same thing with Phil Simms. Everyone bashed Phil Simms for years. He won the Super Bowl. They would still bash him. Soon as he left, 2 years later, he listened to the fans. Phil Simms was the greatest quarterback in the world. And I think to myself, I remember sitting in the fans here and you guys boo Phil Simms relentlessly. So, things change. But in my mind, I'm not personally thinking that the media is prohibiting coaches from coming to New York. I think coaches think twice if there's a similar situation. I guarantee you Rivera probably, even with the McAdoo connection, the Gettleman connection said, hey, you know what? I got the owner in Dan Schneider that's going to give me all the money in the world. I have the opportunity in Washington, and I'm not going to have to put up with the crap that I'm going to have to put up with in New York with the media. I think that might have been part of it. I think McCarthy was looking for a job, and like I said, the Dallas job was probably just too good of a job to pass up. Like I said, you got Jerry Jones, who's going to meddle, but he's also going to give you what you need to win. So, but like I said, I personally don't think the media is overly intrusive in the hiring process. But I do think some coaches probably do take a look at, the media itself and say, hey, do I really want to deal with this crap when I can go to this other place to do it? But what the best thing, what they say the best remedy is for that? Get some talent and win. And I think that's what we're hopefully heading towards. Hopefully we move forward, not backwards this year in 2020. Hopefully we play in 2020. But you know what? We have to just see what we're doing, see what's going on. And we are New York Giant fans, and we support our team no matter what. And again, this is Tim with Online Big Blue, bringing you the best in New York Giant sports talk and entertainment. Thanks for listening.